Today on Trucks, Stacey's pulling the bed off a 95 Ranger for Project PreRunner. And with some big new meats and cool new fenders, he's going to turn this Tame truck into a street-legal desert flyer. Then we're going to the annual Street Rod Nationals for a look at some of the hottest and coolest show trucks on Earth. And finally, Stacey's got new trick parts for your ride in truck gear. That's all today on Trucks.
Hey, how you doing? Welcome to Trucks. We've got a great show planned for you today. It involves this 1995 two-wheel drive Ford Ranger. What are we going to do to it? Well, I'll tell you that in a minute after I tell you a little bit about this truck. What we have here is a perfect example of what you can find out there in a well-worn, late-model used pickup. Now, I'm calling it late model because it's less than 10 years old. Now, it's got 100,000 miles on it. The paint is faded. The warranties are history, and of course the interior is well worn. So picking up something like this is pretty inexpensive. That makes it the perfect build-up project. Something that you can throw a little bit of money at, keep it in a reasonable budget, and still have a great time with. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Now, this truck originally came with the lowered street suspension, so it was a street cruiser. And you can see it also spent some time as a construction worker. We're going to change all that. We're going to go a totally different direction. We're going to take it up in the air, but we're also going to make it into something that will fly through the air. Yeah, we're going to make it a PreRunner, a street legal PreRunner. The first thing that we're going to deal with is the body. Now, since we're going to be running a much larger set of meat, that's pretty big for a Ranger, we have to modify and flare the rear fenders. So we went to Fabtech Motorsports and got a set of their fiberglass rear fenders. Now, as you can see, these are not just a skin. This is a full fender replacement. It goes right in place of the stock steel fender. Now, they're made out of hand-laid fiberglass, so they're very strong. They also have the tail light buckets and a 3-inch flare built right in. We also picked up one of their bed mount spare tire carriers, so we have a place for our spare tire. Because I guarantee you, one of those big fat suckers is not going to fit in the stock location. Okay, to take these fenders off, the whole bed needs to come off to do it right. So, first thing we're going to do is pop off these funky aluminum strips, follow that with the tailgate, and then the bumper. Next, we'll get rid of the spare. Now, don't be surprised to find some crazy stuff like this telephone wire holding the spare on. Jerry rig. The tail lights also need to come out, and those just unscrew from the body. But you'll want to make sure and keep those and all the hardware together because you're going to need to reuse that. The last thing to come off, and the one that most people forget, is the gas filler neck. Now, this has to come off or you'll never be able to lift the bed off. There we go. While you've got everything apart, this is the perfect time to drill your holes for your spare tire mount. Now, once you have it centered up how you like it, go ahead and mark and drill your holes. But one word of caution, make one look up underneath to make sure you're not going to drill through a fuel line or wiring harness or something like that, because that will definitely ruin your day. Then just unbolt the bed and lift it off. We are going to use this really cool tool called the truck bed lifter that we got from Brute Manufacturing. Now notice it slides under the bed rails and allows one person to lift the bed off using an engine hoist. Very cool. Another slick piece we got from Brute Manufacturing is the bed dolly. Now this is a wheeled dolly that you can set the bed on, and then you can roll it around while you're working on it. What a difference the right tools make. All right, now comes the tough part, and that's getting these old fenders off because they are spot welded all the way around this outer edge, all the way down the back, and that's why we had to take the bed off. Now, don't even attempt this without the proper spot weld cutter. These are available in most welding shops, and they allow you to cut through the weld and the top panel but not down into the bottom panel. Now if you try to do this with a regular drill bit, you'll just fight with it and you'll end up ticking yourself off. So what you want to do is take a pen and mark each and every spot weld. Now make sure that you're being careful, because believe me, one little tiny spot weld will keep this whole fender from coming off. And they're hard to see. Put the cutter in the center of the spot weld and drill until you're through the top panel. A screwdriver will help you separate the panels. Now once all the spot welds are cut, carefully pop the fender loose and set it aside. Now you want to be careful and not damage these, because a good used fender is valuable. You can actually offset a good chunk of this project by selling these, but they're not worth diddly if you bend them all up when you take them off, so be careful. With the fender out of the way, dress up the inner flange with a grinder, and finally spray a coat of primer on any bare metal. We had a little bit of a surprise on the passenger side fender. It was held on with adhesive, not spot welds, which means this truck's been wrecked and this fender's been replaced. Fortunately, none of our mounting surfaces have been destroyed, so we don't have to fix those. But all this old glue will have to come off, so that fender will sit nice and flat against that surface. Now once you have it all cleaned up, it's time for the fenders. We'll take care of that after the break.
Next, it's bedtime for Stacey as he's finishing up the back half of Project PreRunner. And later, we're checking out what's cool, radical, and just plain weird at the Street Rod Nationals in Louisville.
Welcome back to the shop. We are right in the middle of doing a pre-runner treatment on a 95 Ford Ranger. Now I've got the old steel fenders off, the new fiberglass ones are mocked into place. As you can see, we're going to have to do something about this inner wheel housing. These new fenders have a much bigger opening, and that thing's just going to hang there in the way. Now it's spot welded to the inner wheel tub, so we'll just drill it out and get rid of it. Now you can see these fenders taper up in the back, and that is very cool. But that also means we need to do something about this bracket, which does not look so cool. So we're going to go ahead and mark it and then cut it off with a plasma cutter. Now once everything's trimmed up out of the way, the new fender drops right in place of the old one. But we did need to do a little bit of trimming up here on the corners so everything would slide right into place. All right, we've got a problem. Obviously, we can't weld fiberglass to steel, so how are we going to mount them? Well, I'm going to give you two choices, and glue is not one of them. You can either use rivets or screws. Now, I'm going to use aluminum rivets for a couple of reasons. First of all, the aluminum won't rust. Second of all, a really nice even line of rivets will look a lot better than screws down this side. With your fenders lined up and clamped in place, just drill your holes and put in your rivets. Now I'm putting them about 5 inches apart like the spot welds were, so we have plenty of support. Okay, we've put on these big old flared fenders. They look awesome. But we still have to support these corners to keep them from flopping in the breeze, especially since we lost the support of this wheelhouse. Now the original brackets, we can't reuse those, they're too small. So we're going to have to make something. First thing you want to decide is your mounting points on the fender and the bed. Then we'll bend up a template using an old coat hanger. Then we'll transfer the shape to an 1/8 inch piece of 1 inch flat stock. Drill. And finish the ends. Then just bolt it on. Oh yeah. Now this will support your corners. Now remember, you've got to do it for all four. And that is right on. Once the bed's all together, it's just a matter of lowering it in place and bolting it down. We'll finish it up by putting in the tail lights and the gas filler neck. Now, don't be surprised if you need to come in here and do a little trimming and fitting to make everything just perfect. This is also a good time to put on a new spare tire mount. Since we already drilled the holes for that, just a matter of bolting it on. Well, you can see what a difference the flared fenders make to the look and the stance of this truck. And that's only the rear. After the break, we're going to do the front. Well, you didn't think we were just going to do half of it, did you? Stay with us.
Next, we're moving up to the front of our Ranger as the fiberglass continues to fly. Stay tuned. Just can't get enough of trucks? Check us out online at truckstv.com.
Welcome back to the shop and Project PreRunner. Now, we spent the first half of the show replacing the stock metal fenders with these big flared fiberglass ones, and it was pretty involved. We had to pull the bed off, drill some spot welds, do some trimming, a little bit of fabricating to make everything look just right. Now, replacing the fronts is a heck of a lot easier, and this is how to do it. Start by removing the turn signal lights in the corners. Save these and the hardware because you're going to need to reuse them. You'll also want to remove the chrome trim. Next, pull out the fender bolts inside the engine compartment. Pull out the plastic inner cover. Remove the bumper. And finally, don't forget the little bolt in the door jamb. Then, carefully lift off the fender. Now remember, just like the rear, these are great swap meet material, so try not to damage them. Okay, for the new front fenders, we also went to FabTech Motorsports, got a pair of their fiberglass replacements with a big old 3-inch flare built right in. Now just like the rears, they're made out of thick fiberglass, have a much larger wheel opening for bigger tires and more suspension travel. But you'll also notice they don't have any mounting holes. That's for you to take care of. All right, first thing you need to do is set the fender in place, then line it up back here with the door, then with the hood down this line, and then finally up here at the grill. Now take your time here because this is the step that'll determine just how good this all looks. Once you're happy with the fit, go ahead and mark and drill your mounting holes. Now make sure that you make these big because you want to have a little bit of adjustment in here. That is why a fender bolt has such a big washer on it. It covers that adjustment hole and it also spreads out the load on the fender. Then bolt the fender on, making sure to continually check your gaps. Because of the size of these fenders, this original plastic cover that went inside here, well, that's useless. But it is a good idea to have some sort of shrouding to keep mud and rocks from getting inside the engine compartment and back inside the fenders. Now, if you're not going to mess with that, at least put a nice thick layer of undercoating in here. Finally, put on your trim and your lights. Now, you'll notice I don't have the bumper on yet because I haven't really decided what I'm going to do there, but we can still step back and take a look at it. Wow, what a difference 4 fenders makes. Now the fun part is showing you how I'm going to stuff 33-inch tall tires on this thing. But oh man, we're out of time, which means if you want to see more of this project, you're going to have to come back next week. Don't you just hate that?
After the break, Stacey's got some spring in his step during truck gear. And then he's causing trouble at the Street Rod Nationals.
So how do you feel about guys that trailer their stuff in?
See, you can say that. I can't say that.
And now truck gear, parts, tools, and equipment for pickups and sport utilities.
In the world of towing and hauling, trucks and SUVs are king. That's what they were made for. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't use some help, and that is what super springs are for. Now these bolt right over the top of a standard leaf spring, over the axle, and when the spring flattens out under load, that's when the super spring kicks in and acts like an overload spring. But what's different is this shackle and roller end makes everything much smoother than an old standard bolt-on overload spring. Now installation is just a few bolts, about 20 minutes, and of course 250 bucks. Now that's a pretty good deal for better load handling capacity and stability. One area where your truck can really benefit from a custom touch is in the grill. Now there's a lot of really nice custom grills out there, but one of the best comes from Trends. Now this features fully polished billet aluminum bars that are very close together for a really nice custom look. And it comes with all the bracketry and hardware to mount these in, and that is another Trends trademark. These things fit. Now the application, almost any truck or SUV out there, heck, even cars. And the price, well, that depends on your application. One of the cool things about being a gearhead is you get to play with a lot of cool toys and you get to go to a lot of neat shows. So we went to the Street Rod Nationals in Louisville, Kentucky. You're not going to believe what we saw. Hey Randy, roll the tape. Let's get started with Dell Diver's 1948 Laser Red GMC that took him 12 years to build and is a lesson in customizing. Now the grill's been widened as it goes down and flows into 97 Explorer parking lights. The front bumper is a combination of a 97 Explorer, a 98 Ranger, and a 68 Mustang. Well, at least he kept it all Ford. There's an electric hood that opens from the side to reveal a fully detailed, really nice 350. The top was chopped 3.5 inches, and to get everything really slinky, the cab and the hood were sectioned 4 inches. Of course, with that much metal work, you know you got an all-steel custom bed, and the fenders were widened 1 inch. If you think those exhaust tips look familiar, you're right. 78 Trans Am. The rear end is just as crazy with 91 Acura Integra taillights mounted upside down and a 54 Chevy rear bumper narrow at 8 inches, and of course it's upside down too. And the spoiler, pirated from a 78 Accord somewhere. And check out this interior, awesome. And the Nationals isn't all about trucks.
Now this is cool, an original police car. Assume the standard position that you always get on something like this. This is how you have to look at an old police car. You go around it with your hands like this. I love it.
Okay, so you say you want something a little more hot roddy, maybe so you can outrun that old police car. How about Dwayne Smith's black 34 Ford that's packing a 392 Hemi with a 6-pack of Hollies on top and a 150 horsepower shot of nitrous? Now you're talking. But just having an engine isn't enough at the Nationals. You gotta have a truck wrapped around it. Starting with a handmade hood covering the Hemi, the top was chopped 5 inches while the grille and windshield posts were laid back 7 inches. A 64 Chevy donated the metal for the top, and the cab was extended 7.5 inches, while the cowl got an additional 3 inches to give you more legroom, of course. The doors are suicided, and they open up to a beautiful leather interior. And finally, a custom painted nitrous bottle hides under the dumping bed. Now that's sneaky. Of course, there are a lot of distractions at a meet like this.
Now check this out, this is cool. Oh, no, you gotta see this. Check this out. An original surfer wagon. Untouched, unrestored. Look at this, man. Original wood, original surfboards. And you might be wondering, yeah, this isn't a truck. Yeah, it is. Use your imagination. It's a wagon. It's close enough. It's like a PT Cruiser. It's not a car. It's a truck.
Now, of course, if you think a project like the surfer wagon is a little over your head, there are some easier options out there.
If I was looking to build my very first older car, I'd definitely get a pickup because the restoration market for them's booming with parts that you can replace all the rust with. You can get aftermarket parts for them now. Suspensions are easy to bolt on. You don't need to do a full front clip like you used to. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to build a truck right now.
Now, you're probably thinking, all these trucks, they're just trailer queens. But that's not so.
So how do you feel about guys that trailer their stuff in?
See, you can say that. I can't say that.
I don't know. You,
Well,
you build these things to drive them and have fun with.
Absolutely.
I don't get off looking at it in the garage or looking at it on the trailer.
You mean you don't wipe it down with a diaper?
No, I don't.
The Nationals pull in almost 14,000 pre-1948 custom vehicles from all across the nation. And the very best are here. So if you're even remotely interested in custom trucks, you gotta check it out. Yeah, I thought you'd like that. And speaking of checking it out, here's a little taste of next week.
Next week on Trucks, Stacey's going from this to this as he finishes up Project PreRunner by adding a 5.5-inch lift front and rear. Then it's Mad Max Revisited. We're taking the blown street sweeper out to do a little pavement cleaning. And finally, Stacey's taking us out to a truck show to check out new parts in truck gear. That's all next week on Trucks. For a VHS copy of today's show, call toll-free 1-877-853-7260. Show videos are just $12.95 plus shipping and handling. Trucks is an RTM production.